My parents left me at a hospital as a newborn and never returned. Now they're hiring lawyers to get access to the $20 million trust one inherited. I was in my apartment grading papers when the certified letter arrived. 24 years old, middle school English teacher, living my quiet life in Atlanta. The return address made my stomach drop. Patterson and Mills, family law attorneys. I tore it open with shaking hands and the words blurred together at first. On behalf of Denise and Ezekiel Bradley, biological parents, significant trust fund, parental rights, visitation arrangement. My biological parents, the ones who left me wrapped in a yellow blanket at Grady Memorial Hospital on a freezing January night in 2001. No note. No explanation. Just abandoned me like trash and walked away. The nurses found me in the family bathroom crying, my umbilical cord still fresh. They never came back. Not once in 24 years. Not a birthday card, not a phone call, nothing. And now they wanted visitation rights? I called my best friend Tasha immediately. Girl, you need to sit down for this, I said, my voice cracking. She lived 2 floors down and was at my door in 3 minutes flat. What's wrong, Cheryl? You're scaring me, she said, pulling me into a hug. I handed her the letter. Watched her dark eyes widen as she read. Wait, your biological parents? The ones who dumped you? They're trying to what now? Apparently they heard about Grandma Ruth's trust fund. My grandmother, the woman who actually raised me, had passed away 6 months ago. Left me everything, her estate, her investments, her life insurance. $20 million. Tasha, they want access to me now that I'm worth something. Over my dead body, Tasha said, her jaw clenched tight. Grandma Ruth wasn't my biological grandmother. She was the social worker assigned to my case when I was found. 62 years old, recently widowed, no children of her own. She took one look at me in that hospital nursery and said, "This baby deserves better." Within 6 months, she'd navigated the foster system, completed adoption paperwork, and brought me home to her brownstone in the West End. She used to tell me the story every year on my found day, January 15th. Baby girl, the moment I held you, I knew you were mine. Not by blood but by choice. And choice is stronger than blood any day. Grandma Ruth worked as a social worker for 35 years, then started her own consulting firm helping nonprofits. She was brilliant, fierce, and loved me unconditionally. She taught me to read before kindergarten, took me to the symphony every month, made sure I understood my worth. When kids at school teased me about being adopted, she'd say, "Being chosen is a privilege. Your mama picked you special." She never badmouthed my biological parents, but she never sugarcoated it either. They made a choice, Cheryl. A hard one. Maybe they thought they were doing what was best. But I made a choice too, to love you forever. 6 months ago, stage 4 pancreatic cancer took her in 3 weeks. Brutal and fast. I held her hand in hospice as she took her last breath. "Make me proud, baby girl," she whispered. "Life big. Love hard. Don't let anyone dim your light." Now these people wanted to crash into my grief? 2 days after the letter, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Cheryl? Cheryl Norwood. A woman's voice, trembling. This is Denise. Your mother." My blood ran cold. "My mother is dead. She died 6 months ago. You're just the woman who gave birth to me." Silence. Then, "I know you're angry, sweetheart, but if you'd just let me explain." Explain what? Explain abandoning a newborn in a public bathroom? Explain never checking if I was dead or alive for 24 years? Or explain how you suddenly found me now that I inherited money? My voice was rising, hands shaking. It wasn't like that. We were young, scared, broke. We thought you'd have a better life. Don't you dare. I was pacing now, fury burning through me. Don't you dare make this about me. You had 24 years to find me. Grandma Ruth's name was on the adoption papers. She never moved. Same house, same phone number for decades. You could have found me any time you wanted to. Denise's voice cracked. We made mistakes. We were stupid kids. But we've changed, Cheryl. We're different now. We have 2 other children, your siblings. They want to meet you. Don't you want to know your real family? My real family raised me. My real family loved me. My real family didn't need a $20 million incentive to give a damn. I hung up, my whole body trembling. Tasha found me on the bathroom floor 20 minutes later, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. I hired a private investigator named Jerome Matthews. Former Atlanta PD detective, now working private cases. He came to my apartment with a leather folder and a grim expression. Miss Norwood, what I found, it's not pretty. He spread out papers across my coffee table. Photos, documents, social media screenshots. Your biological parents, Denise and Ezekiel Bradley. They're not struggling anymore. Ezekiel owns 3 car dealerships across Georgia. Combined income last year? Just over $2 million. They live in a 6,000 square foot house in Buckhead. Country club memberships, luxury cars, the works. My stomach twisted. They're rich. Very. And here's the kicker. They had their first child 3 years after they left you. Kevin. Then 2 years later, a daughter named Brittany. Those kids went to private schools, took trips to Europe, got new cars at 16. They wanted for nothing. I stared at photos of my biological siblings. A handsome young man in a college football uniform. A pretty girl at her high school graduation smiling in front of a Mercedes. They looked happy. Chosen. They could afford to raise kids 3 years later? My voice came out hollow. Jerome nodded grimly. Ezekiel started his first dealership with family money in 2005. His parents gave him a $100,000 loan. They had resources, Cheryl. Even when they left you, they weren't desperate. They were just unwilling. What about their families? My biological grandparents. Both sets alive and well. Wealthy families. The Bradleys own a construction company. Denise's parents run a successful restaurant chain. None of them ever looked for you either. I felt sick. They didn't abandon me because they were desperate. They abandoned me because they didn't want me. That night I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m. I did what I swore I wouldn't. I looked them up online. Ezekiel Bradley's Facebook was public. Photos everywhere. Family vacations to Turks and Caicos. Christmas mornings with expensive presents. Kevin's college graduation. Brittany's sweet 16 party that probably cost more than most weddings. And the captions. My beautiful family. Blessed to have these amazing kids. Family is everything. Family is everything. The words mocked me from the screen. I scrolled back year after year. Not one mention of me. Not one thinking about the daughter we gave up post. Not one hint that I existed. I was erased. Written out of their narrative completely. Then I found something that made my blood boil. A post from Ezekiel 5 years ago, celebrating 20 years with the love of my life, Denise. You gave me the 2 greatest gifts, our beautiful children. I'm the luckiest man alive. 2 greatest gifts. 2 children. I didn't exist to him. I never had. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to Jerome. Then I texted Tasha. Can't sleep. Need you. She showed up in pajamas with ice cream and wine. We sat on my couch until sunrise, not talking much. Just being together. Because that's what real family does. They show up when you're breaking apart. They don't wait until you're worth $20 million. We're fighting this, right? Tasha finally asked. With everything I have, I said. I hired Sandra Mitchell, a family law attorney with a reputation for being ruthless. Her office was downtown, all glass and steel and expensive art. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. They have no legal standing, Sandra said, flipping through the Patterson and Mills letter. Parental rights were terminated through abandonment. Georgia law is clear. You can't abandon a child and then claim parental rights decades later. This is a shakedown, pure and simple. So why are they bothering with lawyers? I asked. Because they're hoping you'll settle. Give them something to go away. Most people would rather pay than fight. Sandra leaned forward, her eyes sharp. But I don't think you're most people, are you? I want them to get nothing. Not $1. Not one conversation. Nothing. Good. Because here's what they're really after. They found out about a clause in your grandmother's trust. If you die without heirs, the money goes to charity. But if they can establish a legal familial relationship, they could contest the will. Claim they should have been beneficiaries as your family. My jaw dropped. They're trying to steal my inheritance? Not directly. But they're positioning themselves. Right now their lawyers are probably advising them to establish contact, build a relationship, get named in your will. Then wait. The words hung in the air like poison. They want me to die. I whispered. Sandra shook her head. They want you to include them as beneficiaries. But yes, they've calculated the value of your death. That's what we're dealing with. I felt Tasha's hand squeeze mine. My voice came out stronger than I felt. Then let's make sure they understand I'd rather burn every dollar than give them a cent. They showed up at my school. I was walking to my car after a long Tuesday, arms full of homework to grade, when I saw them standing by my Honda Civic. A tall man with graying temples, expensive suit. A woman with a familiar face. My face but older. My biological parents. Cheryl, please just give us 5 minutes, Denise called out. Students were everywhere. Parents picking up kids. My principal watching from the doorway. This was deliberate. A public ambush where I couldn't make a scene. I walked to my car ignoring them. Ezekiel stepped in front of my door. Move, I said, my voice flat. We just want to talk. Is that so wrong? We're your parents. Your genetic donors. Parents show up. Parents love unconditionally. Parents don't abandon babies in bathrooms. I kept my voice steady, but my hands were shaking. And parents don't show up 24 years later with lawyers, trying to steal a dying woman's money. Denise's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. We were kids ourselves. We made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. A mistake is saying the wrong thing. Abandonment is a choice. You chose not to keep me. You chose not to find me. You chose to have 2 more kids and give them everything while I got nothing. Those were choices. Own them. Ezekiel's face hardened. You think you're so high and mighty? You got lucky with that old woman's money. But you're still just. Just what? I stepped closer, rage burning through fear. Say it. Say what you really think of me. A crowd had gathered. Teachers, students, parents. Everyone watching. Ezekiel backed down, but his eyes were cold. We'll see you in court. That Friday I got a DM on Instagram. From Brittany Bradley. My biological half-sister. Hey Cheryl. I know this is weird. I just found out about you last week. Our parents told us they had a baby before us that they gave up for adoption, but they never told us your name or that they'd found you. I'm really sorry for how they're acting. This isn't right. Can we talk? I stared at the message for an hour. Showed it to Tasha. Could be a trap, she said. Could be them using the kid to get to you. She's 19. Not really a kid. I pulled up her profile. College sophomore at Spelman. Studying social work. Ironic. She looks genuine. Against my better judgment, I replied. We agreed to meet for coffee at a neutral location. Octane on the west side. I brought Tasha as backup. Brittany showed up nervous, clutching her purse like a lifeline. She looked like Denise. Like me. Same eyes, same cheekbones. Seeing her felt like looking at a ghost of what I could have been. Thank you for coming, she said, sitting down. I wasn't sure you would. I'm not sure why I did, I admitted. What do you want, Brittany? She took a deep breath. To tell you, I think what they're doing is disgusting. When they told us about you, Kevin asked why they never tried to find you. Dad said it was complicated. That you were better off. But then we found out about the money and suddenly you weren't better off anymore. You were family. Her voice broke. I'm not naive. I know why they want contact now. And it makes me sick. Brittany started coming by every week. We'd get coffee, talk, carefully build something fragile between us. She felt guilty, survivor's guilt, she called it. She'd gotten the life I should have had. It's not your fault, I told her one afternoon at Piedmont Park. You didn't choose this. Neither did you. She wiped her eyes. Cheryl, there's something else. Something I heard Mom and Dad fighting about last week. My stomach knotted. What? The real reason they left you. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. I recorded them. I know it's awful, but I thought you deserved to know the truth. She pressed play. Ezekiel's voice, angry. I told you this would come back on us. I told you we should have done the adoption properly. Denise crying. I was 19. Your parents said they'd disown you if you kept the baby. So we left her at the hospital like garbage? And now she's got millions and wants nothing to do with us, rightfully so. Your father said if we gave her up, documented it, he'd pay for college. He said no one would hire you with a baby. So we took the money and pretended she never existed. And now everyone's gonna know what we did. The recording ended. I sat there frozen. His parents paid them off? I whispered. They got paid to abandon me? Brittany nodded, tears streaming. $50,000. That's what Grandpa Bradley gave them to handle the situation quietly. They used it for Dad's first dealership down payment. My entire existence had been worth $50,000. A business transaction. Sandra filed a restraining order. No contact, stay 500 feet away. But Ezekiel and Denise fought back hard. They hired a PR firm, started doing interviews with local news. Heartbroken parents searching for abandoned daughter. Successful couple wants to reunite with long-lost child. They painted themselves as victims. Said I was money-hungry, refusing reconciliation because I wanted to keep the inheritance to myself. Said Grandma Ruth had poisoned me against them. The comment sections were brutal. She owes them a chance. They were young and scared. People make mistakes. She's being cruel. They're her parents. But other voices fought back. People who'd been abandoned, adopted, fostered. People who understood that biology doesn't equal family. I gave one interview. Local reporter named June Gallimore. She met me at my apartment and I told her everything. Showed her the evidence. The photos of their wealthy lifestyle starting 3 years after they left me. The recording of them admitting they were paid off. The timeline showing they could have found me anytime. This isn't about reconciliation, I said, looking directly at the camera. This is about money. They had 24 years to be my parents. They chose not to be. Grandma Ruth chose me when they wouldn't. He loved me when they couldn't. That's family. And I won't let them rewrite history now that she's gone. The interview went viral. Hashtag Team Cheryl started trending. The tide turned. The court hearing was set for November. But 3 weeks before, Ezekiel showed up at my apartment building. Drunk, angry, bypassing the restraining order. Building security called the cops. but not before he screamed in the lobby for everyone to hear. "You ungrateful bitch. We gave you life. You wouldn't exist without us. That money should be ours. We're your real family." Tasha recorded everything from her window. The cops arrested him, hauled him away still screaming. But his words echoed in my head for days. "We gave you life." That night I wrote a letter. Not to them, they didn't deserve my words anymore. But to myself. To the baby who was left in that bathroom. To the little girl who grew up wondering why she wasn't wanted. To the woman I'd become despite them. You were always enough. You were always worthy. You were always loved, just not by them. And that's their loss, not yours. Grandma Ruth saw what they couldn't. She saw magic where they saw burden. She saw potential where they saw inconvenience. She saw you. And 24 years later you're still here. Still standing. Still fighting. Not because of them but in spite of them. They don't get to claim credit for who you've become. They forfeited that right in a hospital bathroom in 2001. I posted it on social media. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages from adoptees, foster kids, people abandoned by their biological families. "Thank you for saying what we couldn't. You gave me courage. Your story matters." The judge was a black woman in her 60s named Honorable Patricia Williams. She read through every document with careful attention. Looked at photos of the Bradleys' lifestyle while I was growing up in Grandma Ruth's modest brownstone. Listened to the recording of them admitting the payoff. Read the texts and emails from their lawyers discussing strategy to access the trust fund. "This court finds no merit in the petitioner's claim," Judge Williams said, her voice ringing through the courtroom. Parental rights were legally terminated through abandonment. The petitioners made no attempt to locate or contact the respondent for 24 years. Their sudden interest coinciding with the respondent's inheritance is noted and concerning. Ezekiel and Denise sat stone-faced, their expensive lawyers whispering urgently. Furthermore, the evidence presented suggests the petitioner's motivation is financial, not familial. The restraining order is extended indefinitely. The petitioners are ordered to cease all contact, direct or indirect, with the respondent. Any future attempts to access the trust fund or contest the inheritance will be met with sanctions. The gavel came down. Final. Absolute. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Tasha squeezed my hand. Sandra allowed herself a small smile. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I gave them one statement. Justice was served today. Not just for me but for every child who was abandoned and every person who chose love over biology. Family is about showing up. My family showed up. They never will. Ezekiel and Denise left through a side exit. I never saw them again. 6 months later, I stood in front of the freshly painted sign, the Ruth Norwood Foundation for Foster Youth. I'd used $5 million from the trust to start a nonprofit supporting kids aging out of foster care. Scholarships, housing assistance, mentorship programs. Everything Grandma Ruth would have wanted. Brittany was there now working as a volunteer. She'd cut ties with Ezekiel and Denise completely after the trial. Changed her name to Brittany Mitchell, her mother's maiden name. "I'm choosing my family now," she'd told me. "Like Grandma Ruth chose you. We'd never be what biological sisters should have been from the start. But we were building something real, something earned. That was enough." Tasha stood beside me holding the ceremonial scissors. "Grandma Ruth would be so proud," she said, her eyes wet. I thought about that January night in 2001. A baby left in a cold bathroom, unwanted and alone. I thought about the social worker who saw that baby and said, "You deserve better." I thought about 24 years of being chosen, loved, raised right. I thought about Ezekiel and Denise, living with their choice every day. Knowing they traded their daughter for money. Knowing they'd lost twice. Once when they left me and again when they tried to come back. She already is proud, I said, cutting the ribbon. She knew I'd use this money to help people. To be the kind of person who shows up. That's the legacy that matters. The crowd cheered. News cameras captured the moment. Later donations would pour in. Lives would be changed. Kids would get chances they deserved. I wasn't the abandoned baby anymore. I was Cheryl Norwood, daughter of Ruth Norwood, defender of chosen family, champion for forgotten kids. I was loved, whole and free. And I'd built this life not because of my biological parents, but in spite of them. That was my victory. That was my inheritance. That was my truth.